Hello, guys, and welcome back to our Monday podcast brought to you by Healing Your Way, Champions of Wellness podcast. And thank you guys for tuning back in with us. And don't forget, before we start, to please like, subscribe, and share this podcast to everyone that you know. It really helps us out. And make sure to check out not just this platform, but all of our other social media platforms. We are here on Rumble, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. So please check all of those social medias out and give us a follow and a like. It really helps us out, and we can keep pushing out these episodes for you. And also, please let us know if you have any ideas or any topics you would like us to cover, because that can give us some good ideas, and maybe we can branch out into other things in a nice way that kind of connects everything together. And yeah, please go check those out. And
today we're going to be talking about magnetism and how it interacts with us and our environment. But also, like he said, let us know if you have any recommendations for content you would like to see. Like today, we just posted a video or reel on Healing Your Way Instagram and TikTok. So check that out, and we'll have videos posting every day in the future.
Yep, exactly. And like Joshin said, today's episode is going to be about magnetism. And I thought this would be definitely a good and exciting topic to talk about, because of the topics that we kind of covered in the last few episodes. Specifically the last two, which were on water and cold exposure or cold thermogenesis. We talked about a little bit of topics related to magnetism, such as things like how some structures in our body are semiconductors, the flow of electron, and how that impacts our energy, how environmental stresses or factors can mess with our own body's circuitry or magnetic circuitry and electrical circuitry, and things like that. So I thought that magnetism was kind of like the final step in bridging that gap of information, especially because I want everyone to think about their body in terms of light, water, and magnetism, instead of just food and chemicals, because it really is or the way to health is really that second layer, that layer in the physics that no one really discusses or talks about, because everyone is stuck in the field of biology or the chemical world and trying to find solutions to things through chemical processes, instead of looking towards the most basic form of science, which is physics. And physics, if you guys have taken any physics classes before, you understand that it's probably the most fundamental science that there is to know, and that every other science or study of science bridges off of physics pretty much. So you start with physics. Chemistry is a level above physics in terms of like getting more complicated. Then people can extrapolate it to biology, and then go on from there. But at its base, physics is pretty much where everything is explained about how the universe works. And I think the way we're gonna go about this podcast is kind of give you guys some insight and attention to what type of physics is going on with our body, because usually what people think about when they think about physics is kind of like space or engineering or developing machines, pretty much things that are non-human related. But I hope this episode kind of gives you guys an understanding of how we're not so different from all of these other physics principles that you may see in your everyday life. And first off, we're going to start with the definition of what magnetism is. So magnetism is pretty much what happens when electric charges move. So when you have a constant change of electric charges, that's going to create a magnetic field. And pretty much every time an electron flows or an ion travels through something like a membrane, or I'm giving like a biological example. So, for example, like a membrane, it's going to create a magnetic field. And that magnetic field is going to ultimately determine how electrons or ions move throughout that system. So, electrons or ions are going to be the particles that are driving that magnetic field. And then now your body is going to be working in an entire system. And what I want you to also think about is magnetism and electricity as two kind of hand in hand sides of the same natural force. So that's why you hear a lot of people talking about something called electromagnetism, because two of these forces are very, very interrelated. And like I said, if you think about the definition of magnetism, it's what happens when electric charges move. So that just shows the duality and how both aspects are important to understand it. And first off, some examples that you can see in the body as far as electricity and magnetism. So we have nerves. Nerves fire electrical impulses throughout our body, and that gets us to react. That connects our central nervous system to our peripheral nervous system, and that pretty much governs all of our body's actions and our thinking, our processing, what we do, our actions, me waving this arm, that all has to do with electrical impulses. And we talked a little bit about this on the last episode, but our mitochondria are a big part of this magnetic system that we have because they move electrons along the electron transport chain. And that movement is what gives us energy to be used in the form of ATP. So that is another big component that is a part of our magnetic system. And even if you look at heartbeats and brain waves, they actually also have found to generate measurable electromagnetic fields. So, of course, they
Yeah.
don't. Of course, they don't have the strongest electromagnetic fields, but that doesn't really matter, because if you think about our body, it's not going to produce an electromagnetic field on the scale of something huge. But it's noticeable, and it's important in how it's acting, because that affects all of the other processes that's going on with our body.
And also our brain electromagnetic frequency is 7.83 hertz, I'm pretty sure. And like San was talking about, when we talk about magnetism, it also interacts with the environment that we have surrounding us. And we can find that the Earth's magnetic frequency is also 7.83 hertz. So how we interact with the environment is very important. And this calculation is done by finding out what the Schumann resonance is. And it's basically the kind of like the Earth's resting heartbeat. And how we find it is when the sun releases solar flares, or things that will affect the Earth's atmosphere. The Earth has a electromagnetic field which protects it from these certain things from the outside. So, and also with uh, the Earth, well, with the Earth's surface and with the atmosphere around it, the sun. Well, San, can you go on about this?
Uh, are you talking
Like, what
about?
was it? What's the layer above the surface? It's ISO something.
Mm,
Because
I don't.
I think when there's solar flares, it kind of, when you scream down a hallway and there's an echo, the sun's solar flares and EMFs are communicating with the Earth to then come up with the Schumann resonance, which is the Earth's magnetic frequency. So that travel of the solar flares and EMFs and things like that kind of dictate how the Earth's frequency is. And also that can connect with us because we have the same frequency as the Earth, brain waves.
Yeah, and though like something like the Schumann resonance, like it fluctuates based on what is going on celestially. So like that means pretty much based on the solar system and the planets and what's happening on that type of scale.
Oh,
But
it's
like
ionosphere.
y-
Yeah.
and like Joshin said, the Schumann resonance is a frequency that occurs because of these interactions between the sun and the earth, and not just the sun and the earth. Well, I mean, while that's the main dictator of it, there's also other magnetic factors at play. But what you can take from this is that the Schumann resonance is kind of one of these static or relatively static magnetic fields, and that's going to be constant and low frequency. And just like how Joshin said, our brain waves actually are on a similar frequency as the Schumann resonance. That just shows how our biology is made, in the way we evolved. It's pretty much made for our environment. Otherwise, there would be some reason for why we would be acting or operating on another frequency. So the fact that our brain is operating on a frequency similar to the static magnetic field of the Schumann resonance just shows how environment is something super important. And we're going to get into a little bit other things after about interference and what types of interference you probably encounter in today's world, and how that interference can affect not just your frequency, but also how your body responds, because it's now being thrown off in an environment that it's not really supposed to be in.
Yeah, and also due to excess amount of external factors like the solar flares and EMFs, that can change the Schumann resonance from 7.83 to even 30 hertz, which is way different than the resting. So you know how that can probably affect us and throw us off if we're in sync with the Earth's magnetic frequency.
Yeah, definitely. But before we kind of go down into that space and talking about what's going on in our solar system, I kind of want to talk about a guy named Robert O. Becker and what he found. So he put out this book in 1985 called Body Electric. I have yet to read it yet, but I've done a little bit of research on him, and his specialty was on bioelectric medicine or bioelectricity and magnetism. And he was an orthopedic surgeon at the time and a researcher who kind of showed that life is on the electric and magnetic level, just like I was telling you before. And one of his main discoveries is that he found that the body has a DC electrical system, and DC means direct current. And he found that a slower direct current system runs through the nerves, skin, and connective tissue of the human body, and also animals as well. And this DC electric current controls things like growth, repair, and communication between cells. So you can kind of think of this as like a biological kind of like Wi-Fi network that we have with this DC electric current. And what happens with this DC electric current is that when you have an injury, or you have a sustained an injury, or some tissue in your body is wounded, a small DC electric current appears around the injury. And this is called the injury current. And what this injury current pretty much does, it tells electrical signals nearby to start regeneration and start the healing process. So this just shows that our body, when it's brought with an injury or something has happened to it, some type of stimulus, whether it's good or bad, it has a reaction to it through this magnetic or electric current.
Yeah, and I heard that, just for clarification, I heard that pressure on bones or any stimulus from the outside that puts pressure on bones or fascia can stimulate electromagnetic flow throughout your body. And a bone can actually act as a semiconductor. Is that right?
Yeah, bone is, yeah, we talked about semiconductors on or just a little bit about it on both the water and the cold exposure podcast. But what a semiconductor pretty much is it's like it has properties of both an insulator and a conductor. So a conductor allows electrons to flow, but an insulator resists electron flow. So what happens with the semiconductor is that since it has properties of both, it can only direct current flow or electron flow if the conditions are met, if the right conditions are met. So if the conditions for energy flow are not correct, then it won't conduct. But if they are, then it will conduct. So that's why it's called a semiconductor, because only under certain conditions can it conduct electricity. And what Dr. Obecker also found was that you can actually heal bone by electrical stimulation. And he kind of hypothesized that a current of injury triggers the healing process. So like I just said, the current that is now made due to the injury triggers the healing process, and you can kind of take advantage of that through electrical stimulation. And one example of a device that him and his colleagues came up with was the PEMF generator, and this stands for the pulsed electromagnetic field generator. And what this does is pretty much what that current of injury is also aiming to do. So this is to dedifferentiate, proliferate, and stimulate bone growth. And what he actually did was they tested this, and they saw that there was pretty high success rates with stimulating bone healing. And I kind of am interested to maybe see who around here has like or if there are any locations that have this device and do this therapy, because I think this would really help people such as athletes who maybe have a lot of injuries throughout the season, or maybe athletic trainers can implement this, because if something is able to stimulate bone growth and speed up the healing process, and also has high success rates of around like 80% and above, I think that this would be an amazing tool to implement. And maybe I might look into this for this is just throwing it out there, but hypothetically, maybe if I find that this is something really, really useful, which it sounds to be, maybe we can do some investing and implement it in our clinic at Healing Your Way. But I would, obviously have to look more into it, but it really sounds promising.
Yeah. Also, with bone growth and repair, putting stress on your body can also be a big factor in helping that, because when you go out and exercise and you go work hard in the gym, or you just put stress on your bones and muscles surrounding your body, you can stimulate bone growth through injury or just needing rest and recovery. So if you need a simple fix, definitely get some activity in your life, and also maybe just lift some weights and go to the gym.
Yeah, and I have a little or a few more other stats about the PEMF device. So it exactly uses low frequency electromagnetic energy to generate weak electrical currents at a fracture site, stimulating the bone's natural healing process. This non-invasive FDA approved method is primarily used to treat non-union fractures, which means that fractures that have failed to heal, and as an adjunct to spinal fusion surgeries with reported success rates ranging from 68% to over 90%, depending on the case and patient compliance. So, I mean, those statistics there like really show like how this is something pretty strong and profound, and especially with people who have sustained like severe injuries where like it even said, fractures that are unable to heal. If we can implement something like this to help that type of patient pool out, that would change their whole life pretty much. And some of the other processes of how it promotes bone healing. So it says it activates cellular pathways and stimulates bone forming cells. These cells are called osteoblasts. This is kind of funny because I just had an exam on anatomy, and we kind of learned a little bit about how bone gets reformed or regenerated after injury. And it's kind of nice to know that there's something even better or something that we can maybe implement to stimulate this on a much better level or faster level for people who really need it. But yeah, also it, like I said already, increases cell proliferation and differentiation, and mineralization of osteoblasts. So the mineralization of osteoblasts is going to be what's making the new bone tissue.
Yeah, and also for people who don't know what osteoblasts are, there are different cell types of bone tissue or bone cells, and the type that San's talking about is the one that just comes in and grows and repairs the injury site. But osteoclasts are the ones that break it down once it's injured, kind of shaving off the bone and making a site for the osteoblast to come in and rebuild the bone. So those cells are mainly for rebuilding bone and repairing.
Yeah, and if it can, stimulate the osteoblasts, of course you have. The osteoblasts are going to be kind of more on the surface layer of the bone, but if it's stimulating the bone forming cells, then that's like all you kind of need. Of course, there's a lot of other different aspects, but I'm sure the current that they're using is also aiding in whatever else needs to be affected as well for the whole process to happen.
Yeah, also just from another podcast that we had, like maybe even thinking about drinking more water or the cold exposure, because the structured water is going to inside our body, as it were 70% water, is going to be affected because it has structured water has a negative charge, which will interact with magnetism and electromagnetic current throughout our body.
Yeah, and another reason why I really like the topic of magnetism is because we kind of laid it out in the water podcast by bringing up the concepts of the body's water circuitry or system acting as a battery and also as a capacitor. So those also require magnetic fields to operate effectively and efficiently. And of course, they have to be pretty specific to your body and to your environment. So that just makes a bigger case for how important magnetism really is in our lives and why you should really be paying attention about the types of interference that is around today and how you can minimize interference and optimize you being in line with the environment that you're in. And some important considerations, although with the PEMF therapy, I have listed here saying it's non-invasive and safe. It has no significant side effects, and it's allowed to be used over casts and clothing. It's typically adjunct to standard care, and some contraindications. So if you have a pacemaker, or if you're pregnant, or if you're at risk for epileptic seizures, those types of or those group of people should not use PEMF therapy. But this seems like something that can be used pretty widespread on like something like a drug. Something like a drug or that's acting on a chemical level really has to be used in a specific setting. Not saying that this is not supposed to be used in a specific setting, but you always have the risk of some severe side effects, and you always need the supervision of a doctor, because if you're not using it correctly, sometimes it can really go wrong. And that's kind of another benefit I see to this, because instead of kind of treating the symptom, this is harmonizing the body and bringing it back to healing that is supported by the environment, instead of trying to go against it and find a kind of synthetic pathway to healing. And yeah, that kind of really surprised me with Robert O. Becker, and I hopefully maybe some of us can try to build off of his work, because I think what he found kind of really applies to what's going on in today's life. And he really was advocating against the construction of big power lines, because he knew what types of impacts and how detrimental it can be to human health. And the reason why we see all of the chronic illnesses and diseases today are probably a good chunk from all of this modern artificial electromagnetic fields that are disrupting our body's own biological magnetic field. And yeah, hopefully, after I read his book a bit, I can definitely gain some more insight, and hopefully it can give me some good ideas to maybe add to my own practice or think about doing. Definitely, I want to get into the world of all of these new devices, especially devices that have to act in an electromagnetic way or on an electrical level, because I really think this stuff can help. And I think we're already kind of doing that with the red light therapy. So that's kind of doing it in a little bit different perspective. I don't know how different Becker's work is from something like red light therapy, but I think the more I understand about it, the more I can probably bridge the gap between those two, and hopefully add it to whatever we can offer you guys at the Healing Your Way clinic. And just
we also like trying new ideas or things like San just brought up. If there's any devices or anything that could help us holistically, then we'll try it out and definitely use it to our advantage to help you guys out too.
Mm-hmm. And going back to the topic about semiconductors, what Dr. Becker also found is that bone and collagen act like semiconductors in the body. And like we said before, the semiconductors, when the conditions are met, these are going to control how your electrons or your body's energy moves. And so going back to the example of bone, when you stress the bone, it's going to produce an electric charge. And this process is also called the piezoelectric effect, because it directs where new bone should form. So you can also see your magnetic field as kind of like an information center as well. Just like we talked about light actually is storing information that is important for our body. Our magnetic field is actually also directing and supplying information to our body to let it know what has to be done, what processes have to be done, what sites of injury need to be healed, and all other sorts of things. So that just shows how really we are beings on not just a biological and chemical level, but really a physics level. And all of these concepts are super, super relevant, and I think kind of left only for maybe the physics majors, and most of those physics majors and physicists. But I think the way they apply that the information is, of course, mostly on like theory and things beyond like something like healthcare. And also, he discovered the Hall effect. And this is a phenomenon where moving charges in a magnetic field create voltage differences inside bone. So, so what this pretty much did, or what he did by discovering the Hall effect, kind of confirmed that magnetic fields directly influence biological charge movement. And so, if we think about like kind of like why this matters, he, what Dr. Becker did, kind of gave way, or I think he kind of inspired Jack Kruse, because that's pretty much the person that I kind of found Dr. Becker by, because I read a lot and listen to a lot of Jack Kruse's podcast, and he mentioned Dr. Becker, and I think a lot of his work has been inspired by him, and that's why all these topics of light, magnetism, and water, and especially circadian rhythm, are super, super important if you want to optimize energy and healing. And yeah, also what I want to mention really quickly is how bone, or what Dr. Becker found in bone that is so important, and how it bone, and not just, or how do I word this, bone and all of our other materials in our body actually are structured or materialized specifically so that they are in a good magnetic environment. So some things about bone: it has a quasi-crystalline structure, making it highly ordered. And I think another topic I want to go into a little bit later is about crystals. My mom is really, really big into that, and how they store energy and information, and how they're not just some type of like pseudoscience or something to look funny at. They actually have a lot of value and use if you know how to use them correctly. Bone also has a presence of a PN junction, and this is a precise oriented arrangement of two primary components, which is collagen and the mineral hydroxyapatite. Hydroxyapatite is pretty much the crystallized structure that forms bone. And this junction made by the collagen and hydroxyapatite allows for the directed flow of charge carriers. And of course, there's a bunch of other aspects of bone that ultimately relate to the idea of it being a semiconductor. But I think all of the foundings that Becker has done already kind of solidify it as being something that contributes to our body's magnetic field. And now moving on to the four major ways that magnetism affects biology. So again, going back to the topics of water, we have the layers of water, specifically the two, easy water and bulk water. And the fact that or the way we talked about this on the water episode is that differentiation of charges or voltages is what creates the difference in electric charge, which is then gonna create that type of battery effect with our whole system. And water is the easy water carries a negative charge, while the surrounding bulk water holds a positive charge, and then that difference is what drives the electron flow, and what contributes to our overall battery, and how our batteries operating like effectively or ineffectively, and that depends on pretty much all the interference that's happening as well.
And what we can do about the interference is also maintaining our structured water or easy water placed in our body. So what we can do is drink more water, have cold exposure. The state of easy water is between ice and liquid. So you want to have it at a cold state. So making sure you're getting cold exposure to expand the structured water zone is a helpful way as well.
And so those are. Oh wait, what else did I have to say about that? Okay, yeah. The second. Okay, so that's the first way. Magnetism affects biology through that battery effect with water. Then the second thing that we have is something called ion motion and Larmor precession. So some of our body's atomic elements like calcium, potassium, and sodium have something called a small magnetic moment, which is pretty much like the orientation and the strength of the what's happening with those atoms. So it's the strength and orientation of where that magnetic force is being directed. So in a magnetic field, they kind of spin and wobble like this, and this kind of motion is called the Larmor precession, like I just talked about. And these spins are happening at pretty precise frequencies, and this is going to affect how ions flow through channels and membranes and overall contribute to your body's electromagnetic field. So why this matters exactly is because calcium flow is critical for things like muscle contraction, nerve signaling, and hormone release. And if we have magnetic disturbances in our environment, that's going to pretty much alter this flow and kind of affect us and take us out of our optimal environment. So our body is going to be receiving signals that it's not supposed to be, and then it's not going to be able to carry out precisely all of the different processes that it's supposed to. And the third thing that we have is electron spin states and radical chemistry. So chemical reactions rely on electrons pairing and unpairing, and scientists call this spin states. And the magnetic fields that we have influence these spins and affect something called free radicals. So what free radicals are, if I can kind of like explain this on a simple level, it's unpaired electrons, and all you have to really know about that is that unpaired electrons are very, very reactive, and they kind of move around because they're trying to pair with another electron to complete and become stable. So imagine like a very unstable particle that's being super reactive that can cause damage and do lots of other negative things to the body. So once we have the ability to stabilize our magnetic field, we can kind of control the free radical or oxidative species, because we can control the level of how they're reacting and ultimately bring it to a stable environment instead of being an environment of chaos.
And also another way to stabilize our electromagnetic field, I know it's pretty simple and we've been doing it for many episodes, but making sure to recharge our electromagnetic battery. Each day we're expending a certain amount of energy, and it's important that we get enough sleep and expose ourselves to dark room with spiking melatonin, so that you can recharge your battery at nighttime and then spike your cortisol in the morning by going out and receiving sunlight. So kind of listening to the environmental cues is a very big factor to charging your battery.
Mm-hmm. And what happens at nighttime is that temperature also drops, and then that has the cold thermogenesis effects, because everything's gonna slow down, like you just said, and the tissue is gonna become more magnetically ordered and recharged for the next day. And also, what is another thing that happens at night. Is a lot of the interference that we have throughout the day through things like lights, screens, phones, any power lines that are being active. Usually, they're being used throughout the day. And what happens at night, which is kind of a good thing, is that all of these interferences are kind of put to rest because you turn off your phone, you put it to the side, and then you go to sleep, hopefully without any lights on. You're in a dark room. So interference is at a much lower point than it is throughout the day. And that can really help you recharge and reset and become stable for the next day. So what I would recommend to you guys is that when you're sleeping, to avoid as much interference as you can. So that means unplugging all outlets near you or near your bed, especially near your headspace. And I would suggest, I know a lot of people like to charge their phone near their bed, usually on like a nightstand next to it. But what I would do is kind of charge it at a spot on the opposite end of your room. So this kind of does two things. So it makes you get up to turn your alarm off if you have one. And ultimately you wouldn't need an alarm if your body is in sync with the right environment. But I know so many of you guys probably use it. So to keep your alarm handy so you don't miss waking up on time, just still leave it in your room, but put it on or put it in a spot that's pretty far away from you, especially your head, and just sleep like that and kind of notice how much better rest you get, because I've done this recently and I think it's helped me a lot. I've been able to get much deeper sleep, and when I wake up too, I don't have like a blaring alarm right next to my ear. So sometimes that even has given me a headache before, and the fact that it's like a little more distant has helped me out like a lot.
And also, it goes with waking up in the morning too. You don't want to expose yourself to things like your phone right when you wake up. You don't want to look at your phone right away and then expose yourself to these other factors that might affect you. And you should just go outside and receive natural sunlight instead of things that are external, that are not external, but technological, which will kind of throw off your system. And I also wanted to say that at night, if you want to listen to music or things like that, that's okay, but make sure it's the right hertz that your brain can process and receive. Don't listen to things that are too alarming or too off-putting while you're trying to be in a rest and relaxed state.
Yeah, and I think you can, if you look on YouTube, you can look up like alpha waves music, and or just type like whatever the frequency of sound that you want to hear. So the ones that we had right here were in the range of like, I think 7 to 13. So you can like pick frequency in that range and pretty much find a video. Of course, I think there still would be like a level of interference with whatever device you're using. So maybe that might not be the best thing to do right before you're sleeping. But if you want something to maybe calm down a bit, if you're feeling super stressed, then maybe you can implement something like that. I kind of like to use it when I'm maybe studying and there's too much external noise in the background. Something like that kind of centers me and still allows me to use my brain effectively.
Or even just rain sounds or kind of nature sounds that you can listen to in the background will just help you be calm. And I think it's a lot better than being overstimulated.
Mm-hmm. And now that we kind of talked or finished up how our body has its own magnetic field, now that magnetic field can actually be affected by other ones, like we just talked about with EMFs or any device that's using electricity or current. this also can be expanded to the celestial level, like we were talking about at the very beginning of this episode. So, what's happening to the Earth and its magnetic field is also going to affect us, and especially what's happening with the sun, which is the main star of our solar system, is also going to very affect or have an effect on our health. And some of the things that are happening to the Earth's current magnetic field, it's actually weakened about 9% in the past 200 years. That magnetic pole is actually shifting away from Canada and moving towards Siberia, and it's moving at a rate of around like 40 miles per year, excuse me. And there's also something called the South Atlantic Anomaly, and this is a region of particularly weak field strength over the regions of South America and the Atlantic Ocean. And this region has been expanding, and it's even going to the level of affecting things like satellites and cosmic radiation levels, which is definitely going to have an effect and an impact on yours and my health, and whether we're like super conscious about it or not. And these shifts mean that the Earth's magnetic shield or magnetic field that is protecting us from solar and cosmic radiation is now fluctuating or going up and down. So maybe some days it's very strong, or some days it's very weak. And on the days it's very weak, we're prone to a lot more cosmic and solar radiation, which is then going to affect our own magnetic field.
Yeah, and also the solar and cosmic radiation. You can see the aurora in the sky at lower altitudes actually, which is the solar flares kind of interacting with the atmosphere and the gases within it. So you can see it at lower altitudes and know that there's something going on with our with the Earth's shield, and the sun may be affecting it.
Yeah, and also something about the sun. We have solar cycles that go through periods of minimums and maximums. So maximum would be like peak solar activity. So you'll see like a lot more things like solar flares or coronal mass ejections, which are kind of like disruption or changes in the magnetic field of the sun, and just pretty much overall increase of solar activity and radiation. And we're in the 25th solar cycle, and right now currently in the 25th cycle we're kind of approaching a maximum. So what also comes with the maximum, besides the increase in solar radiation, is that the sun's magnetic poles flip every 11 years. And this is actually gonna be on the upper end or faster end when we're approaching the maximum. And like I said already, solar flares and CMEs become more frequent and powerful. And ultimately what that does to our Earth is that disturbs our magnetosphere, which then impacts the rest of the Earth's magnetic fields. Like we have different layers, like you said already, we have the ionosphere, and we have multiple other layers of the Earth that represent our magnetic field. I can't really name all of them right now.
And also protects us too. Like the atmosphere is part of it as well. It's always protecting us, but if you said that it's the amount of solar flares and EMFs are building up over time, it may affect our Earth's shield, because it might not be able to take or withstand the amount coming its way.
Mm-hmm. And some of the recent events that have happened to the Earth specifically, in March of 2024, we had a severe geomagnetic storm that hit Earth after a massive CME. And in this year, March 2025, we had a X1.1 class solar flare And this was so strong that it disrupted radio signals and even GPS. And the classes of solar flares are from A, B, C, M, and X, with X being the strongest. So if we had just showing we had an X 1.1 class, and that if that disrupted something like radio signals and GPS, who knows what it could have done to our body. So maybe on those days or that month of March, people maybe weren't feeling so well. I remember clearly that whenever usually I'm not feeling good or I'm feeling super tired or drained, my mom always, like, she's watching the space weather news all the time on this YouTube channel called Suspicious Observers. And she watches it every day, but whenever I kind of verbalize to her that I'm feeling sick or not so good, she's like, "Oh, another solar event just happened. This happened, or solar flare happened, or some CME happened." And I'm like, "Oh, that's definitely what's or what I think is affecting me," because sometimes everything can be completely fine, and then I'm doing everything well, doing everything right, and then I'm not sure what's really draining me or affecting me, and it makes sense on that type of level.
And also, I don't want people to see the sun as kind of something that's going to affect us or put us in a bad spot, because we do need the sun. We need sunlight every day, which kind of regulates our body. What the sun is also doing, besides releasing solar winds, you might think it's affecting us in a bad way, but it's also creating a heliosphere, which is protecting our solar system in a full and expanded way, because the solar winds kind of create a similar how we have a electromagnetic field surrounding our Earth, but it's protecting us from the interstellar cloud, which is where our solar system is kind of moving. We're currently in what's called a local fluff, and we're surrounded by things that are radioactive or kind of dust and things like that, which are around the solar system. But it's being protected, but our solar system is being protected by the heliosphere made by the sun. So don't look at the sun as like something that's going to affect us long term, but yeah, we're just going to adapt and kind of do what we can to stay with it and change.
Yeah, and if you're not going through all of these fluctuations with your own magnetic field, I think the better your health is going to be. So of course you don't really have that much leverage or things that you can do when something like a big solar flare or a CME happens, but you can try to avoid other interferences to your own magnetic field through things like light screens and power lines, or all the things that have been done artificially to our environment. So if you can at least manage those and bring yourself to a stable frequency, such as what we talked about with the Schumann resonance, if you can bring yourself to the most stable electromagnetic field possible, then you're probably going to be indicative of better health.
And also with the Schumann resonance, I heard that like people that have a big connection with the kind of like the Earth are really affected by the Earth kind of getting thrown off, like the Schumann resonance frequency being 7.83, and people getting thrown off by it spiking to 30 or something like that. I seen things like that when people get really affected, but yeah, so kind of keeping yourself in check. But also a comment from the chat from Sandro. He said, how does natural radioactivity from space like cosmic rays interact with our bodies, and how does this change when Earth's magnetic field naturally weakens or during a strong solar event?
And I think the other two questions from MP4 Change are kind of asking the same thing, because she's asking, you are saying the sun affects us magnetically on our body, in what ways, and how can you stabilize your own magnetic field. Um,
Grounding.
so yeah. Okay, yeah, we can. Yeah, one of the things that you can do is definitely grounding. You're gonna get electrons from the earth soil or ground, whatever you're standing on, grass, sand, soil. You're definitely gonna get the electrons from there, and that's gonna help stabilize your body's own magnetic field. And to answer Sandra's question of how does natural radioactivity from space interact with our bodies. So just think of us as having a magnetic field that can be disrupted by another entity's magnetic field. So our magnetic field is relatively small to something like the Earth or the Sun. So just uh, our think about your own magnetic field acting, and that magnetic field of maybe something bigger, like you're talking about space, cosmic rays, things like that. Like one of the most basic things I can probably help you relate to this is like gravity. So we're connected to the Earth through the force of gravity, and that's like kind of like a prime example of the Earth's magnetic field having an influence on our own magnetic field. So much so that like we're now fully planted and grounded to the Earth. That if we jump, we're not just gonna fly and float into space. So it's kind
Yeah,
of like similar.
it's pretty much like we're connected, and it's being in the Earth's environment is kind of affecting us on a whole life standpoint. Like if we lived on another planet, we wouldn't our body would respond differently, and we would have to adapt to the stimulus that affects us. But like being on Earth and kind of just realizing that magnetism is really affecting us like on a whole wide level.
Yeah. So if like it all depends like what is interacting around us. So if you have something such a big scale as like the Earth and the Sun, whatever's happening there is definitely gonna reach us or our magnetic field, because of just like the sheer size that both of the planets have compared to um, uh, an entity like us, like us compared to something like the Earth or the Sun. Like we're super small. So if they're having magnetic field interactions on that level, of course it's going to affect us whether we accept that fact or not. And to answer
And
your
also,
second question, how
mhm.
does this change when Earth's magnetic field naturally weakens during a solar event? Oh, wait, let me just read this carefully so I can answer it right. Okay, so when Earth's magnetic field um, weakens, especially during a time of solar maximum, like now, our body's going to be prone to more disturbance of magnetic field. So whenever the Earth's magnetic field is weak, you can kind of think of that as our protective layer um, for our own magnetic field. And if something like that is weakened, that's gonna have an even more profound impact on our individual magnetic field, which is then gonna obviously maybe have us feeling more drained, more sick, more tired, any of those things.
And also, I wanted to say a big thing on our adaptability. I think people forget about how adaptable our bodies are and how we're a working, living system. And just like you said, 9% of the Earth's electromagnetic shield has weakened over 200 years. And you could assume that the sun is so strong that you would think almost 10% of the weakening of our Earth's shield would affect us greatly. But we have adapted over time and kind of reintroduced different things to help us sustain this lifestyle.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, people really underestimate that, and just know the you're more that your environment is what's like dictating how your body's gonna adapt. So just know that like all of the interference that we're presented with today is kind of leading to like something like what Jack Cruz is calling like cognitive de-evolution. So with all of the interference that's happening right now, we're kind of pushing ourselves towards a direction of de-evolution. So pretty much getting dumber, more brainwashed, more easily manipulated, and of course all of those things have to do on or related to a level of power and politics, most likely. But like it to say it's not happening is untrue, because what you're seeing with kids growing up who are kind of addicted to these screens, it's very easy to get them to do things, to manipulate them, because they're cognitively de-evolving. So we're not getting smarter, we're getting dumber and more easily manipulated, pretty much. So even though you think that all of these things are not that important, I don't want to say just wait. I mean, you won't. I don't know how much we're gonna see in our lifetime, but if something's not done, like eventually people are gonna really notice the changes that are happening, and they're not gonna be happy with it.
Yeah, and on a kind of an example that I'll give, like a lot of parents when their kids are younger, just so they can have themselves be busy, they just give them an iPad or something like that. But that's messing with them from a young age, being exposed to blue light late at night, as well as currently and even all day, scrolling through and playing games on the iPad is way different than how I grew up and how my childhood was, where we were outside all the time and also experiencing new things in their environment and also causing muscle and bone growth as well. So I think staying inside and being distracted by electronics and things like that is something that we need to avoid.
Yeah, and to then go back and kind of answer the question about how can you stabilize your own magnetic field. Not to be repetitive, but pretty much the things that we've talked about already. Get enough light, stay hydrated, limit as much interference as you can, get as much deep sleep as possible that's in line with the your body's circadian rhythm, or the sun cycles of your environment. Grounding as well. Cold exposure, especially during the winter months. Eating whole, healthy, or organic foods that don't have any additives or anything that's going to contribute to an environmental toxin. And pretty much those are like the main core things that if you can do on a regular basis, you're going to be setting yourself up for a lot of success. And I think if people can stick to a lot of these basic things, they can really change their life, not in terms of just health, but also feeling better, wanting to get up, having a goal. Because I think what's happening with all the interference is we're kind of getting dumbed down and more easily manipulated, like I just mentioned about. And this is all like and I don't know, I'm not going to get into too much of the conspiracies or politics behind it, but it's kind of aiding in the battle for power. And the more easily you can manipulate people, the better it is for whoever is in power. So whatever, if you can live this kind of pure and authentic lifestyle, you can bring yourself to, I think, first of all, one, believing in yourself, believing in your health, your body, and then starting to believe in your mind and what you can do, because now you're not just going to accept whatever you see on the internet. You're going to go and find out for yourself. And I think that's why we always see a direct correlation between health and success, because you can't really have too much success if your body is not healthy, in the right state of mind, and helping you in your journey instead of self-sabotaging.
And also from the chat, Sandro said, "My fault for the typo. Thanks for the recap. Love the new Monday episodes. Thank you so much. We're working on it. This is our 4th episode, so we're gonna be having these episodes every single week. If you have anybody has an idea of what they want to see, that would be great as well. So I'm glad you're enjoying them." And also from MP4 Change, where can I find information on what's happening on the sun? Sahan said earlier, but what we just talked about now, you can find from Suspicious Observer on YouTube, and he gives you a lot of information on not only the sun, but our solar system and how it's going to interact and impact us as well. So definitely check him out.
And yeah, I think I didn't have any more comments. We wrapped up with what's going on in our environment on a solar level, and like Joshin just said, you can find all of that information regarding space weather news on Suspicious Observers. I think he puts out a post or a video every day, kind of like a weather broadcast, pretty much, but on a solar level. So he'll show diagrams of the sun, I think from NASA, and then he kind of explains the activity that's going on, things like sunspots. If there was a solar flare, he'll show the images of it that the Space News has received, and it'll kind of give you the information in a way that you can understand. And he also has videos explaining different concepts about the sun, what elements it's made out of, what some of these terms mean, like solar flare and CMEs and what it means. And you may find some very surprising information on that channel, but I think it's super good to know, and it just helps you prepare yourself and others around you for what is maybe to come.
Yeah, also his videos are pretty quick too, so it's not like you have to watch a whole hour video to find out what he's talking about. He does 3-minute episodes every day, so it's kind of like a recap or weather news about what happened, like San said, and he gives you timestamps and when things are going to occur. He tells you that everything about that as well.
So yeah, you can, if you are interested in that type of information, go check him out. But yeah. And yeah, I think that wraps it up for today's podcast on magnetism. And I want to thank you guys for joining us today, and we will see you on next Monday's podcast. Thank you guys.
See you guys.